Everyone, Kyle with Andrew Hilton here, and if you haven't noticed, Establishment Brewing has put out a lot of new seasonals lately, a lot of them sours, and with this hot weather, what better time to get into those? For those of you not familiar, Establishment is my favorite brewery. Every time I do a beer tasting, I use my Establishment glass, touch wood, because if I keep saying that, it's going to break. And we're going to have someone from Establishment joining us on Wednesday night. Now, I don't know exactly who. Could be Dave Ronneberg, could be Mike Maxwell, could be other Mike, the head brewer, could be Natasha. We don't know. We have 4 beers from Establishment for you, all of which are seasonals. We have the brand newest of the brand new. We have the Gold Past Life, which is a Czech pale lager. We have their Marmalade Skies, which is a sour with orange zest and apricots. We have Super Fusion back again in the full sleeve black can, which makes it look like a year-round, but it's not. It's just a summer seasonal. But it's the pink Guava Catharina sour. It rules. And then finally, left by Walt and El Segundo, the smoked Lichtenheiner. Yeah, everybody likes that beer with pineapple. That's the lineup. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great guest, and you get to hear me geek out of Establishment. Sounds like a win-win for everyone, especially me. All that and more, Wednesday, June the 9th at 6 o'clock. Can't wait to see you out.
Dang.
Hey everyone, how's everybody tonight? Kyle from Andrew Hilton, joined by Dave Ronneberg from Establishment Brewing. How are you, Dave?
I'm great, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. This is all fun for me. My favorite brewery, Wednesday night, beautiful. Well, I say beautiful weather. I kind of said that without thinking about it. It's pissing rain. But beautiful-ish weather considering I'm inside. And we got 4 seasonals all at the same time, which is a rare thing for us because, the Establishment seasonals tend to sell out fast. To have 4 all on the shelf all at the same time, it doesn't happen real often. So we're going to talk a little bit about just how busy you've been, but we're going to get ourselves into the Gold Past Life Czech Pale Lager. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about how busy things have been at Establishment lately as we kind of dip into the first beer here.
Things have been busy. It's still a pretty big appetite for our beer, even though it's all kind of retail focused lately. But the last couple of weeks have been nice to see our beer popping up in a few more restaurants and bars and things like that, and looking forward to a busy summer.
Well, I noticed you guys are a little tight on space. I was there on canning day and everybody could barely move, so not a bad problem to have being that stacked up.
Yeah, we'll manage. That's we can figure that one out.
I like the background you got going on with the barrels behind you. That looks really slick.
Yeah, always lots of barrels. I think we got about 100 barrels with beer in them right now, so we're hoping to kind of cycle through 5 to 6 of those barrels a month and kind of have like a barrel-aged beer release every month.
That's pretty sweet. So let's jump into this here. So we have 4 seasonals, in front of us right now. Plus we have another seasonal that we just picked up yesterday in Food for Clouds. So we've actually got 5 Establishment seasonals on the shelf, which I can't remember the last time that actually happened. Usually they sell out before that. Maybe I've been overbuying, or maybe just, things are switching over to restaurant a little bit, and I'm going to be able to have things on the shelf for more than a week.
The pace of releases here has been pretty hectic lately, so we're kind of hoping to have a break in the next couple of weeks. But we got a couple new ones coming, and maybe we'll tease those later. But
we'll tease those a little later. I don't want to say too much on those because that would be just very rude. So let's dig into Gold Past Life. I know you guys like doing lagers, between Pilsner and my personal favorite part-time model to the Mellow Gold. You guys love doing lagers. What was the impetus behind doing Gold Past Life, the Czech pale lager? And then I assume it says the same thing in Czech, but I'm not even going to attempt trying to say that. Do you want to give us a chance on pronouncing that, or?
Yeah, let's have a look at it. Svetlé Vychepny Pivo. Probably got the pivo right. I don't know about the other parts, but it's the Czech beer names are kind of a classification of, is it pale, is it amber, or is it dark? And then is it light strength, is it medium strength, or like medium strength? So if you look back on the More Than Rain beer, the Czech dark lager that we made, that beer is, the names reflect that's premium strength dark beer.
Is Pivo beer or is Pivo lager?
I believe Pivo is beer.
Okay.
So I don't think they I don't think the name defines whether ale or lager. I think most of the beer styles in Czech Republic are lagers. So
cool. So we already have questions coming in. First off, Craig, not a Pilsner. It's a Czech lager. Do you want to talk a little bit about the difference there, Czech lager versus Pilsner?
Yeah, so you could call this they kind of recently reclassified these beers. If you guys follow the beer judge certification program guidelines, they used to call these. They used to have a a Czech Pilsner or a Bohemian Pilsner. So that beer now would be called a Czech Premium Pale Lager. This is a Czech Pale Lager, so this is the slightly lighter version. I don't know if you can find commercial versions of this beer in Alberta. You can find commercial versions of the Czech Pale Lager, or excuse me, the Czech Premium Pale Lager, which would be the Pilsner Urquell that you would see in the can, or I don't know, are they still doing green bottles?
I think they're just cans now, and thank goodness for that, because those green bottles were universally skunked to hell.
Yeah. So this strength class ends at about 4%, and then the premium strength is kind of the 4 to 5%. So this is the light beer of the Czech Republic, and this is the vast majority of beer that's consumed. And I think their annual consumption rates of beer leading the world of any country is reflective of the strength of beer that they probably drink the most.
Yeah, because this is light and fresh, and it's got a really pretty, like, old world hop note to it. I have a question. This isn't something that came from the comments, but really, Pilsner Urquell from the town of Pilsen isn't classified as a Pilsner anymore under BJCP rules?
I don't know why they did that. They just went to a different naming convention where really, it's the birthplace of Pilsner, and they probably would still call it a Czech Pilsner, but I think they tried to differentiate between the German Pilsners and the Czech Pilsners by giving it a different name. I don't know. You can talk to those guys about it. They're pretty picky about it. So.
They certainly are. Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk about the beer in our glasses here. We've already got a question from Craig about the malt bill, so that seems like a good segue into talking about kind of what went into the beer and what your inspiration was, not just in terms of the beer that you kind of tasted that made you want to make this, but also why you wanted to go for this style in particular at Establishment.
I think maybe a desire to explore some different beers that people have not experienced, and continue. Obviously, I mentioned we did the Czech dark lager as well previously. And we'll probably continue to do these beers, but they're unique beers, and the process that they use in Czech Republic is unique. We're not able to replicate the decoction portion of the production, which is where they take a portion of the mash and they boil it for a period of time to try to enhance melanoidin and character in the beer. They're like this Maillard reaction that happens that occurs in baking and cooking, and also in the production of beer. So we've used a greater proportion of the malts are European Pilsner malt, and then they've used, I think it's, can have a peek here at the recipe. They've used some darker Munich malt and a little bit of Caraviena malt to try to emulate this melanoidin-like character, so you get like a nice bready malt character without the beer being, keeping the beer very, very light in alcohol, but with a nice body still. Kind of fools you. You wouldn't, maybe if you tasted the beer, we're hoping you don't recognize that it's a 3.8% beer. You're like, oh, this is a 5% lager that I'm having.
I certainly didn't, so well done on my part at least. But then I famously can't pick out alcohol, so.
Trying to use traditional ingredients as much as possible. So European Pilsner malt, and then we're using sort of a premium sods hop called early red vine sods, and it's a specific variety of sods that's kind of sought after for the aroma that it provides. So you get a really nice floral and a little bit herbal aroma, maybe a touch of like grassiness in there as well. But I think it's a really, really awesome representation of what like hop aroma can do for a beer. So.
Now, for people who are maybe more familiar with your other pills, like the Pilsner in particular or part-time model, how would you differentiate this for people like in a descriptive way rather than just on ingredients? How's this to drink rather than what goes into it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit more, the malt character is similar, but a little bit richer than the Pilsner. I think the Pilsner is maybe the closest comparison. And the hop aroma, I think, is a little more fuller in this beer, but the bitterness is subdued. So the German Pilsner, you're going to get a little bit more bitterness in the finish, a little bit longer finish. And we do kind of a 50-50 reverse osmosis Calgary water profile to try and emulate, or to try and soften the bitterness. So this beer has a decent number of IBUs, but it doesn't come across that way because the softness or the lower mineral content in the water helps to keep the bitterness really, really gentle.
We have a question from Chris here about your barrel program. Are you barreling your normal beers in there? Are you doing special, like one-off brews that are completely different recipes for the beers that go in the barrels, or is it a little bit of both?
They're not really conventional beer recipes. So the beer recipe, when we produce the wort and ferment it, it's designed with the end product in mind, but knowing that we're not quite sure what is going to come out the other end. So we're reusing the yeast that's in the barrels each time. So our bacterial and wild yeast cultures are getting a little bit stronger, but we are trying to kind of produce a wort that's ideal for making a long aged beer that provides long chain carbohydrates for this long 6 to 12, 18 month secondary fermentation that the wild yeast need to kind of continue on in that fermentation. And then, of course, we have to be careful with the bitterness levels, because the beers become so dry that, same level of bitterness that you might put in the Czech Pale Lager might come across as like really, really firm if the beer is very, very dry and there's not a lot of sweetness to balance it. So we are designing the recipes that in mind. And we're also having to use more hops to try and inhibit some of the acid-producing bacteria, because those bacteria are becoming a little bit stronger, a little bit more accustomed to what we're feeding them, and so we're making adjustments in that way. So if you've had our barrel-aged beer over time, 2.5 years now, you'll notice that they're becoming a little bit more hop character in those beers.
You need the hops to keep the the bacteria numbers down, but any hops you add, they'll add bitterness that will show up much more starkly. That's got to be a tough balancing act.
Yeah, well, that's a lesson learned from the Belgians. They do a pretty good job of using hops in their sour beer. So.
And will you hit a critical mass at some point where the barrel will just be unusable because the bacteria will be so used to hop characteristics that you just can't control them without screwing up the beer?
There's other ways we can try to kind of knock that back a little bit. Like maybe we can treat the barrel differently between uses. So you can't sulfur the barrel. The wild yeast and bacteria kind of live in the wood, but we are providing it with like a healthy population of yeast and bacteria at the beginning of fermentation, because we do want a vigorous fermentation. But we can do we can do cold rinse or hot rinse or hot soak, or some places will even ozone their barrels to try and completely kill the bacteria and wild yeast that are in there. So a few different tools at our disposal.
Got a question about Pilsner. Is it a specific reference to something, or is it just a really gnarly Pils?
It's just a gnarly Pils, yeah.
All right, I like that. Good answer.
It's a homebrew recipe from Mike's homebrew days.
Oh, yeah? That's pretty sweet. I know you're all homebrewers from way back, so I know that yours was always the Fat Sherpa, and there's a lot of the core beers that probably not everything that has come out over the years has been a homebrew recipe, but a lot of the starting beers were.
Those two for sure. Yeah, those two for sure.
Let's move on to maybe the most challenging beer for some folks. I absolutely love it, but maybe not a beer for everyone. I think your average Bud Light drinker would find this beer a bit of a steep climb in terms of complexity. Left My Wallet in El Segundo. Thank God it's back. I missed this.
Yeah.
And B, second time around, at least for me with this beer. What was the response to this the first time? I mean, this was a style that I don't think most people in Alberta had ever heard of. Certainly I hadn't. You folks are known for trying things a little different. What was the response the first time around? Was there enough call you had to bring it back, or is this just a passion project you brought back because you wanted to?
We weren't sure. we weren't sure what was going to happen, but it was very, very well received. And I think like the suggestion of sour and smoky and fruit all together, people aren't quite sure what to do with it or to think about it because they haven't experienced anything like that before. Even a sour or smoky beer is a bit of a step for some people, but a Lichtenheiner is a really refreshing beer. Uh, uh, the concept came from Graham, one of our brewers out here, and he had was inspired by a pineapple mezcal cocktail. So it combined some fruity elements with some kind of smoky mezcal elements. Then we started throwing ideas around and realized that this base of this historical German style that nobody makes might be the perfect combination for pineapple. And you get a beer that tastes and smells like grilled pineapple. Some people think it tastes like pineapple pizza. The smokiness isn't quite the same smokiness you get out of a Rauch beer. Not quite the bacony, greasy kind of rich smoke. Get a little bit more like kind of smoky campfire.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a very clean smoke.
Yeah, and we're using oak smoked wheat, so we're not using the Rauch beer ingredient, which is beechwood smoked barley. And it's I don't know, a really nice character. It lends a nice character to the beer. And same smoke malt we used in our Pink Boots beer this year, Avant Gardner.
Question from me, actually. I know that a lot of styles like this, died out in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Was there actually still a commercial Lichtenheiner that, like, survived the great craft beer dieback, or was this something that was kind of recreated in the 2000s from, like, old manuals?
I'll bet you that you could get this beer in Europe still, and I'd be willing to bet that there's several places. I don't know that anybody in Alberta is making it, but I think you could probably find this in the North American market somewhere. There's a lot of interest in historical beer styles. A while back, there was a lot of people in North America, or in the U.S. anyways, making Gratzer. It's called a Gratzer or Pivo Gorzycki, and it's a beer that's made from 100% oak smoked wheat malt, and it's like a 3% lager, hoppy and a little bit smoky, and it's a pretty interesting beer too. So I'd be willing to bet there's some good examples of the Lichtenheiner out there.
Find it very suspect in telling that you knew all those details right off the top of your head, Dave. Are you maybe projecting some future ideas just a little?
We've talked about making the Pivo Gorzycki. It's I think well, maybe we're not a good judge of what's going to be well received, because we thought the same thing about like Autobahn, the Munich Dunkel that we made. So we only made a small amount of it, and it vanished immediately, and that's one that we brought back to you.
And I'll admit, Autobahn's the one in your catalog that I've never been sold on, because I just straight don't like Dunkel, period.
Yeah.
I don't even like, Weihenstephanos or nobody's. I just don't like Dunkel, which is why it's not on my shelves. And if anybody here really loves Dunkel, tough tits, it's my store. I get to choose what I carry. Anyway, sorry, Aaron just about spat out his beer. You couldn't see that, but Aaron just about died there for a second.
Well, you'll have to come here and get it. There's lots of it in Calgary.
Well, like I said to you when I was there yesterday, actually, we are getting to the point where when like some of these start selling out, where we're actually going to end up with some real gaps in the establishment section, and we're going to have to fill that in probably with the Autobahn. So it will be coming. Not like right away, because I still have a bit of this to sell, but it's coming. What fruit was last year's El Segundo? I think it was pineapple again, but has there been any changes from last year's Segundo versus this year's?
I don't think so. I think we tried to keep it pretty true to what it was the first year. We were pretty happy with it last year. So I could look into that, but off the top of my head, I don't think they changed it. I know your memory of tasting things is better for some things than others, and I don't know if it's because I really like this, but I can really, when I'm not drinking this beer, I can really imagine what it tastes like. It's so unique, and this is how I remember it tasting last year. So.
Yeah, there's beers that I miss that are seasonals that I always can remember exactly how they come off. Yeah, and Eric says he can't think of another beer like this beer. Neither can I. Like, I've had other smoked beers, I've had other pineapple beers, I've had other sours, I've had other pineapple sours, but the smoke adds such a unique component. It's so very different. How much smoke malt do you actually add to this? It can't be very much. It's what, 2-3% of the malt bill?
Let's see. I think it's actually a significant portion because it's not quite as. Oh yeah, it's probably closer to maybe like it's upwards of 30%.
Oh, wow. I would not have expected that at all.
Yeah.
Is it just because it's a really subtle smoke on the wheat?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I think I'm not an ingredient that's really widely used. So it's not like it's not in huge inventory. So I'm not sure if Mike and Natasha are sort of trying to gauge how strong the smoke is in the malt before they decide how much to put in it, depending on how old the ingredient is, because the smokiness will diminish. Malt is been sitting around too long. So getting fresh oak smoked wheat, it comes from Europe. It's made in Germany, and maybe somebody's replicating something like it here. I know people are experimenting with smoking malt here in North America. There's a few places, small places, but something to consider. If it's really old, it's not going to carry quite as much smoke character.
Deirdre gets out ahead of me with what I was going to talk about in a minute, but she's already out ahead. Let's talk about Blackbird, the new black currant beer, which is the most beautiful color for a beer I maybe have ever seen. It's stunning. And I still haven't had it yet. Some of the guys were drinking it, but I missed it. I was doing books. I can't drink and do accounting at the same time, so I have to be like, no, I can't have any because I have to do math, which is sad. Maybe Aaron and I will have one afterwards. That would be fun. Actually, we might have one right at the end of this thing, actually, and we'll do that. Yeah, that sounds good. But yeah, tell us about Blackbird, because I've been stoked about it for like 2 weeks ever since you told me like black currant, and I couldn't buy any when I was there last time, but now I've got a case. Tell us all about Blackbird.
Yeah, so last fall we got some black currants from Saskatoon Farms, I think, here in Alberta. Maybe even going into last summer, and threw those in a tote with a blend of I think we were using a brown base beer and ended up blending it a little bit with some golden base sour as well, and the result is kind of. We haven't done currants before. It's kind of unique. There's a lot of skin in ratio to how much fruit there is, and you get a little bit of color out of the skin, so you get a really, really nice dark color. And I like the black currant because it has, I think, getting dimensions of flavor from, and also kind of mouthfeel and character from the beer as well. So the fruit's providing, some jammy fruitiness. It's a bit earthy. I find it a bit. I think it's a bit earthy. And then you get some tannins from the fruit too. And sometimes you might just get, if you think back to maybe like a plum or nectarine beer that we made, like it's really like a bright representation of the fruit, and it smells exactly like nectarines. But I think that like they did a really, really good job in blending this beer with the portion of brown-based sour beer. So you do get some maltiness in the background. And you get all the nice components, jammy components, earthy, and those tannins that really, really make the beer pretty unique in my mind.
Yes, Devin, we do have some. We got one case, and any chance we could get a second case? You said maybe when I was there yesterday, but now we'll put you on the spot.
I thought you would have ordered more. Yeah, there's more.
There's more? Okay, I will definitely take a second case, because me and black currants are just best
friends.
They
make more and more of these beers just because anytime we do a blend with like 3 barrels, it just doesn't go far enough. So, or 2 even. We've made blends with 2 barrels, and the effort that goes into the bottling process, it's not that much more work to just do a large batch of it. So I think we did about 95 cases.
Now, speaking of bottling, I don't know if we could really talk about this, but I think you have some new exciting packaging news that you were showing me yesterday.
Okay.
Yep. Can we talk about that or no?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah? Okay.
Bought a canning line, so Vessel has, or excuse me, is it Vessel now? Yeah, it's Vessel. It was West Coast Canning. So we're using a mobile canner to this point, but we've purchased a canning line from Cask here in Calgary. And yeah, just kind of next logical step in trying to make sure our beer is as good as it can be and eliminate as much packaging oxygen as possible and save a bit of money in the process.
Nice. That's really exciting. Let's move on to, and I haven't had this year's yet, Super Fusion. I love Super Fusion. And I can tell that everybody else loves it too, because like I said in the promo, like it's now got full can sleeves, which, doesn't mean it's a year round, but it does mean you're very confident it's going to sell well. Ghoulish noise was, but you're back. Apologies to everyone who heard that. That was a thing. And yeah, I know that I kind of said that, Eric, like where did they fit that canning line in that poor little building? It's getting to be a bit of a tight squeeze back there, but
yeah.
But yeah, let's talk some Super Fusion. I think the first sour I ever had from you, because I actually tasted Super Fusion before. First sour I ever had from you, because I actually tasted Super Fusion before I had Jamrock. I think the very first time I drove up there, you had Super Fusion and Jamrock on at the same time. Maybe Jamrock was still supposed to be the winter seasonal sour at that point, and Super Fusion was the summer. Like, these was early days.
Yeah, I was thinking back to this also when we were doing these, we were preparing for this, and I think Super Fusion was the first sour we made. And I think we made it the first summer, and then we made Jamrock in the fall.
Yeah.
And Super Fusion was so popular the first year. We've made it each year now. And I don't know. It's what do you say? I think the guava is kind of a unique fruit. It's maybe not for everybody. A little bit funky. But this was the beginning of like, hey, we can make fruited sours that are really, really fruit forward. Just have a moderate acidity, not really focused on the sour portion. They're focused on the fruit expression of like really nice ripe fruit. And it's still beer-like. It's got some kind of, I think it kind of has a little bit of like graham cracker like malt in there. And it still seems like a beer. We're just kind of like pushing the boundary a little bit, maybe perception of what beer is.
So what was the impetus to doing your first sour? Because again, this is a little before we first started dealing with you folks. Like I think we got in like some of the very last Super Fusion and some of the early Jamrock. But what was that first conversation of, oh, hey, we're going to introduce sour yeast into the brewery. Oh, God, what are we doing? This is going to ruin everything. How did that go? Because I know going sour is like a huge step for everybody, and it's really intimidating.
Yeah, it's we're using the bacteria gets used on the hot side, so we sour the wort, and then it goes through a process of bringing it up to a temperature that kills the bacteria. And the particular bacteria we're using it primarily for the reason that it can sour wort very, very fast, but it's also extremely sensitive to the presence of hops. So we don't use any hops in this beer, because if you put hops in the wort before you sour it, the bacteria are not able to produce the acidity. So in that sense, it's maybe kind of safe, because pretty much all our other beers have hops.
Oh but no, my Ryan Hetzkebot, how sad.
Yeah. So by that nature, it's fairly safe to use, and also the souring occurs in the kettle. It doesn't occur in the fermenters, so it goes through the heat sterilization process. And then the beer, after a boil, goes into the tank, and then we add brewer's yeast. So this isn't, in all our barrel-aged beers, the beer, if it's fermented in stainless, is just fermented using brewer's yeast in stainless, and then it gets transferred to barrels where we introduce wild yeast and bacteria. And from that point forward, use separate equipment, use separate plastic valves. I think there's a few stainless parts which we heat sterilize if we use them for that. But how
do you have a kiln for that? How do you heat sterilize? Just a blowtorch? I'm imagining very high tech and very low tech solutions for that problem.
We have a pressure cooker that we use as an autoclave, so small parts we can, if we have to use small parts. But the large stainless parts, we don't have to. We just don't use them for sour stuff.
So now you have quite a track record now of doing sours. I mean, Jamrock, of course, is, I think, for us, our best-selling establishment beer. I don't know where it ranks for you folks, but just on the table, we have 3. Plus, I mean, I loved Cellophane Flowers. We've had just so many. Has it become one of those things that it's just become either A, something you've become known for, or B, just purely a passion thing? We love sours, and we just want to keep doing them. Or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, people get really excited about them. I think 6 or 7 years ago, I'm not sure the same proportion of the beer drinking population would pick up fruited beer, but it seems to be no hesitation now. People saying, I don't hear too many people nowadays say I don't drink fruited beer. Pretty common when I was kind of getting into the beer scene, and I think that the addition of fruit adds another dimension of like creativity, and you know, there is a lot of beer styles, and we're trying to explore all of those. But if you add another ingredient, you have another, like, makes it a little bit more multi-dimensional, and yeah.
Okay. Since there seems to be some confusion in the comments, yes, we definitely do have Blackbird. Yes, we have 12 bottles. Yes, Deirdre, you can have 4 of them. They are definitely here. We definitely have them. Aaron, would you grab me one just so I can show people we definitely...
Which one?
It's called Blackbird. It's in with all of our establishment large formats in the singles fridge. Oh, Chad asked a really interesting question. Would this fall under Gruit instead of beer for not having hops?
I don't think so. I think Gruit would use herbs in place of hops. So I think just the fact that it doesn't have hops, I don't think makes it. I believe you have to use herbs in place of hops or some other bittering herb. Maybe there is hops in here. Hang on, let me see.
Also, I'm laughing because Aaron is hopelessly lost in front of the singles fridge on the other side of the building. I did. They're like big wine bottle ones. All the established ones are kind of down and to your left. Yeah, like second shelf up from the floor. They all look, you know, the same sort of shape. Says Blackbird on it. Yeah, you got it? Okay. There we go. Now we got it. See, we absolutely have. So also, the label is terrifying, by the way. I mean, great label, but it's a bit creepy. I love it.
Hold it up.
Got the artist here, Mike Hooves.
Nice.
Give him a little shout out. He's a Calgarian, and he did. They did 2 labels for us. They did Little Wing, and then this one as well, Blackbird. And both were kind of inspired by Greek mythology. And again, the illustration style that Mike used is unique. Kind of like framed it with the background, sort of made it like portrait-like, and yeah, I don't know. We're pretty keen on it. I think they did a really awesome job, and
I've liked all of your beer labels, so yeah, I'm super on board. So I'm going to quickly do shameless promotion corner here for a sec here, Dave, and then we will get right back to talking about the Marmalade Skies. So bear with me just 2 minutes here, and we'll quickly talk about what's coming next. And then we'll be right back to do that. Okay, so Friday night, we are doing a return to South Africa. I am never going to get tired of talking about South Africa, especially when wines are this good and this cheap. I will be honest, I was not planning on doing South Africa again this soon. And then my friend Eberhard came down. And Eberhard comes down about every decade. He just doesn't visit Lethbridge. And he brought with him like so much great South African wine. We have some stuff from Lothian. Excuse me, this is going to be about $40 on the shelf. We have some stuff that's going to be under 20. But his Mourvèdre Rosé and his Riesling from Lothian were just so absolutely spot on. Like, this is the $20 rosé that I'm going to be drinking all summer because it's so bright, it's so spritzy, there's so much acidity. You get it in your mouth and you're like, yeah, I'll have that instead of lemonade, and I'll have a second bottle. You all know I'm a hopeless Riesling nerd. And Devin and I actually split on this. He loved this. I didn't. I tasted it. Was like, I'm not sure. It's so South Africa-y. You can kind of taste the smoky granite. I don't know if that's going to sell. It's like, no. That's Riesling's whole reason to be. You can taste the smoky granite. It tastes like South Africa and it also tastes like ripping Riesling, and it's cheap. You're buying this. And he was dead right. He didn't know if he carried Blackbird or not, but he was dead right about that Riesling, and it absolutely rules. This is a fun one. We actually bought Eberhard right out of this wine. This is coming to a big case stack next to the till here as soon as we sell out of Love Rosé. This is going to be our summer grilling wine. You're doing pork ribs, you're doing steak, you're doing burgers. You've got my dad coming over and he drinks, big chunky 14% alcohol red wine. This is exactly what you should be drinking. This has kind of made me almost like Australian Shiraz again, because it's just different enough and it's so much better balanced that I really love this Neil Ellis. We literally bought everything he had left, which was 12, 14 cases. Absolutely ripping good. And then in my never-ending quest to find a Merlot that I can sell for about $20 that's interesting and different and cool, Mirandol. This is one of our home-based imports, something we do ourselves, not something from Eberhard. This is actually one of our own. You know what? I love Merlot. I hate the way Merlot shows in the market. I hate the fact that it's either really austere and Bordeaux and almost trying to reject the fruity Merlot side, or it's just alcohol and fruit and oak, and it's just a mixed up bag of nonsense. This has a bit of both, and I really like that. I like that it's got some fruit, it's got some structure, it's got some tannin, it's got some of the things I identify as being important to being Merlot, like being slightly tea-like. It's a very pretty wine. Tasting tickets are $80, and either Eberhard or one of his sales folks is going to join us as a guest. We're hoping for Eberhard, but he's having some Skype issues, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to go.
Just make a note that I put in the actual online promo that it's 85.
Oh, did you?
So.
Oh, well, it is 80.
It's 80.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, we did put in the video that's 85. It's 80. That's okay. Things were going all kinds of wrong. I forget why we didn't shoot a promo. Oh yeah, cantankerous cocktails. Oh god, the setup and everything with that video. That was. Yeah. Just total aside, we put more time and effort and madness and time settling Mike down because he wasn't happy about being on camera. That video took longer to put together than like 3 other videos. Pick any other 3. It was insane. Beer tasting next week. A bit of a mixed bag. Snake Lake has a couple of awesome new seasonals here. We have the Miss May, which is Lady May lager. I know I called it Miss May in the freaking promo now. The Lady May lager, it's a Hellas, along with the new double IPA from those folks. From Four Winds, they actually made a beer called Greg for Greg Mills, one of their founders, who recently passed away. West Coast IPA from Four Winds. Anytime Four Winds does a new beer, we're going to feature it because Four Winds are just great brewers. And then finally, from SYC, this is a bit of a controversial one. I've had people coming in telling me FOMO's different, FOMO doesn't taste right, FOMO's so different than how it started. I don't know, I had a can like late last week on the weekend. I think it tastes great, but I've had so many people like, I'm not really into FOMO anymore. So we're going to explore why, because I think that's interesting. If it's different, let's find out together. If it's exactly the same and people are just being, difficult about it, great. If it's exactly the same but tastes have changed, that's maybe even more interesting. So that's our tasting next week. Bit of a mixed bag, but I'm excited about all of what we're doing. Anyway, thanks for bearing with us. Okay, let's move right on to Marmalade Skies, your most recent Catharina Sour. And you folks do love you some Catharina Sours.
We do.
Now, you and I have talked about this before, but for anybody new to the tasting series or who has, forgotten what a Catharina Sour do you want to talk about the style?
Yeah, sure. Catharina Sour is a style born of some home brewers and some professional brewers in Brazil, and strive to sort of create a beer that gave them some flexibility in using the array of tropical fruits that are present in Brazil, and make a beer that's a little bit stronger than a Berliner Weiss, but not quite as acidic, and just has a really, really forward fruit character. So we've kind of taken that as inspiration for a lot of our fruited sour beers, and and there's not ever going to be any doubt of what the fruit is in one of our fruited sour beers. So
I think we might be out of Blackbird at this point after like people in the comments commenting on it. So I definitely will need another case. But yes, Deanne, yours is safe, and so are the other people. John, I saw a couple other people wanting one. So, Marmalade Skies. I've really enjoyed this one. I've had this a few times now. Apricot and orange zest. Why orange zest versus flesh versus juice versus the whole orange? What were you looking to express specifically with the zest?
So I think that our experience with having beers that were orange beers, whether that's like blood orange or whether that's like a wit beer with orange or all those things, is that they never really taste like orange. So we found this ingredient, orange zest ingredient, and just like the best expression of orange that we've experienced, and so we were kind of tossing around the idea of how we can put that into a beer, and in a continuation of the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds theme, cellophane flowers, marmalade skies, and I drawn a blank on the first one here. I can't remember what it was. Oh, kaleidoscope eyes.
Oh, kaleidoscope eyes.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, with kaleidoscope eyes.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I hope we got that. That was wonderfully terrible.
We talked about making a beer that was. I had suggested making a beer with something kind of marmalade-like. Kind of. I think this was a beer that was inspired by the name rather than the beer concept. But I tried to make a beer that was kind of marmalade-y, and we talked about what was the fruit we were going to use? Anyways, we talked about using a fruit and discovered it was prohibitively expensive. So.
Yeah, sometimes all these great ideas of, hey, we should do this. That's why it took us like 1.5 years to make a Bordeaux tasting video. It's like, we should really do one of those. But we'd also like to stay in business. So, yeah. I will say, something that's been kind of on my mind, you've got obviously a strong like song reference theme going with your beers. And I did notice while I was there, somebody walked by and said, you know, the day we make a beer with a Doors reference name, I fucking quit. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the naming conventions you have? Like, are all of the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds beers, do they all share like the same base malt? Or do you have like a whole like backstory for how everything's named? Are there, you know, only Beatles songs can be sours?
Oh, I don't think there's anything like that. But, you know, we're kind of going for a little bit of like nostalgia reference. We're certainly fans. We're all fans of all kinds of music genres, and that, you know, our preference for musical genres is wide, as is our preference for beer. And, you know, it's kind of been a common thread that has run through all of our lives, just like enthusiasm and appreciation for music as well as beer. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's a way to find inspiration in naming beers, and sometimes the references are all very, very obscure, and brewers, you know, there's a bunch of musical references that I don't get, and there's a bunch of names that I suggest that they don't get. And
oh, I had to be told on video by Aaron that Left My Wallet in El Segundo was a music reference. That went great. That was live.
Yep. There you go. Not exclusively song names, but almost exclusively.
Almost exclusively, yeah.
Put the links to the song videos up on the thing.
If you want to, Aaron, if you want to make yourself that much more extra work, you go right ahead.
Okay.
Let's see what we have for questions. Like a UK whiskey marmalade. And yeah, Eric actually, he did say this before, but I kind of got wrapped up in something else. You seem to approach fruit as an ingredient differently than a lot of other breweries do. In fact, most other breweries do. What's the establishment difference when it comes to fruit beers? Because 3 out of the 4 in front of us are fruit beers, and I think Eric's actually got a very good point. It's different with establishment. What do you do differently in your approach to fruit beers than everyone else? What's the establishment difference? What's the magic? If you just want to turn around and say trade secret, screw you, that's totally fair.
No, I think it's just I think we've had too many fruit beers where we couldn't pick out the fruit character, and so I think it's more expensive to make it. You got to use more, but we try and find the best fruit we can find, and make sure that the beer is like, when you say it's an apricot and orange zest beer, it tastes like eating an apricot with orange zest. We're not trying to lose anything, trying not to lose anything in the translation. That's what we say it tastes like, or that's what's in it, then that should be a really, really forward expression of ingredient.
And I will say this, Marmalade Skies, this has really shifted for me. When we first got this, I thought the orange was very muted and the apricot was right on top. Now, and I apologize to anyone who's like, oh, I should go get some more. I think we have like 1 4-pack left, if that. Now it's all orange. Like the apricot's kind of in the background, the orange is on top. And we've only had this at most 4 weeks. I can't remember if I picked this up 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. But in either case, like, this is completely shifted. This was so apricot focused when I got it, and now it's all orange. It's incredible.
It's an interesting combo. You kind of like almost can't tell where one ends and one begins, and maybe something to do with having 2 sour beers previous to that as well. Shifts your perception.
I think we've definitely set up our palates well for it. Yeah, this would perhaps be more challenging if we hadn't just had 2 sours right before it.
Yeah.
So Aaron's having a really great lighting rig moment just now. One of his smaller lights died, so now he's trying to like shift around a lighting rig without knocking it over. It's great. And yeah, Kevin agrees. It's very different from when it first came out. I'll ask, actually, do you guys keep like a back catalog of everything you've made? Could you go back and have, Skyrocket 1? I mean, it wouldn't taste like much at this point, but do you have like a massive back catalog of everything?
We don't, but Skyrocket 1 never got canned, or Skyrocket as it was known. But we did, I believe we did, there's random cans in the fridge sometimes, so you go clean out the fridge here at the brewery, and I think we did at one point do a 2, 3, 4, 5 tasting. And yeah, it's interesting to see how those beers age. Not surprising, they don't have like the best shelf life, so go back a year and a half on the beer. Hazy IPA, it obviously loses a lot of its hop character, so it's a bit of a hard comparison to make, but that's trying to give our beer the best shelf life, but I hope it doesn't stick around on the shelf too long.
No, it definitely does not. There are occasionally seasonals that don't do as well as other seasonals, but broadly it does not stick around. I mean, you see how much I take on like a 2-week basis. It doesn't stick around.
We do carry a catalog of most of our barrel-aged beers here, so we're looking soon to kind of launch a cellar menu of beers that you can enjoy at the establishment. So if anybody from Lethbridge is coming to Calgary, then you can maybe come and enjoy an array of barrel-aged beers that are not available any longer, unless you're hoarding them in your basement.
Which, some people might be. That would be entirely fair ball if they were. Yes, the lighting did get much more romantic because Aaron's previous lighting thing did die. It happens. It's on a battery. It's a wireless thing. Just gonna check for other questions here. Oh, Chad asked, does the fruit go in the boil or in the fermenter for this one? Actually, I'll even say for any of the fruit beers we have. Fermenter for all? Can't imagine delicate fruit notes would survive the boil very well. I feel like they'd maybe fall apart a touch.
I wonder if... Hang on. No, I think the pineapple... I was thinking that there is an enzyme in pineapple that some people say if you use it in the boil, I think it has to do with killing head retention in a beer. No, I think I remember them adding this in the fermenter. So all of our fruit is added post fermentation, kind of as the fermentation's tailing off, and then we add the fruit in, and it kind of kicks up another healthy fermentation.
Yeah, Eric is definitely hoarding in his basement. Probably just the ones with his labels, but you know, Eric's broadly hoarding in the basement.
Hi, Eric.
Yeah, Dave did mention at the start of the tasting, yeah, you do have your beers in some restaurants. Like, if you're going to Calgary and you're not going to necessarily be near establishment, where could people go in Calgary now that restaurants are reopening and get a can or a pint of establishment? Maybe several establishments. Where's the best place to tap hunt in Calgary for establishment beers, other than the brewery itself?
That's a test. Oh my goodness. Pretty far and wide now. I don't know. You know what? If you were in Calgary and you could only go to one place, I'm going to say Rain Dog Bar.
Yeah.
Bill's doing a pretty specifically curated beer list. Really doing beer focused menu, and like I think he has a little bit of wine, but it's almost all beer. And they're doing a really creative food thing down there. It's in Inglewood. It's really small. And I don't know. I haven't had a bad experience there. So he'll be open soon as there is indoor dining again. And then, you know, who else is carrying our beer? You want me to go down? I can go through a list here. You want me to go through a list?
You don't have to, but I mean, we're still good. We got 10 minutes. I'll answer a question while you're doing that, just to fill some air. Craig asks, what do we have new on tap in the store? Apparently, unbeknownst to me, I managed to get myself a 30-liter keg of Mrs. Dingwall's Sour from Snake Lake. I don't remember doing it, but apparently I did, which probably means I did it during a tasting. So yeah, apparently I do have some of that absolutely amazing Sangria Goza from those folks, so that's newly on tap. We did just put Super Saturation back on tap. And I will say, yeah, despite us spending a frankly terrifying amount of money on some new parts for our Gallery Station, it's still not goddamn working properly. I spent about $1,700 on freaking parts for the thing in the last month, and it's still not working. It's not for lack of trying, it's for lack of expertise, because it is just not running properly. So I do apologize. We are filling them. We're filling them off the draft rail, but yeah, our counter pressure filler is just not running right, and I don't know why. We've spent a ton of money fixing it, and it's just not running right.
There you are.
Seems like a niche market.
It's definitely a niche market.
Mechanic.
So go ahead, Dave.
He's frozen.
Well, that was good timing. We get back to Dave, and Dave's frozen. Well, we've done well there.
We've done well.
Yes.
Did up until that.
Aaron, what was your favorite tonight?
Oh, El Segundo, good.
Yeah?
Get out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, you're all about that?
Yeah.
I'm
Hands down.
I'm going to be the dick and say that my favorite was actually the one we can't get any more of is Marmalade Skies, because that orange zest is just over the top for me.
It's quite good. Yeah. Yeah, it is quite good.
Craig's coming in like really strong and saying the lagers actually is number one, and then the Marmalade Skies, the Super Fusion, and then controversially El Segundo last. Yeah, I'm not certain we're getting Dave back. I think
maybe his laptop died or whatever he's using.
I feel like we're not getting Dave back. So I think we'll probably call that good for Dave tonight. Yep, there goes the Skype line. We're done. So yeah, thank you all so much for everybody. That was fun. Thank you to Dave. Hopefully he tunes back in to watch the tail end that he missed. Hopefully he's not still talking to his camera and putting out some really salient and good points, because that would be very unfortunate. Thank you all so much for joining us. We have South Africa on Friday. We have a bit of a mixed bag of a beer tasting next week. I'm Kyle with Andrew Hilton. That was Dave Ronneberg from Establishment Brewing. And as always, we have Aaron running the show. Here he is back. We'll get him back. Well, goodbye. You got me right back in the middle of my good night speech. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, you cut out on us there for a minute.
Thanks.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah, no, I was literally at the point of like, thank you very much and good night. And it was just like, nope, Dave's back. All right, cool. Well, this is going to be one for the blooper reel.
He had a list of bars.
Yes, you had a list of bars that were like carrying your beer and doing interesting things with it.
Yeah, I was going to point you to our webpage, because we have a whole map there that shows retail and on-premise places that carry our beer.
Now I'm going to need to check the map and make sure I'm on the map.
Find our beer in Connect now too, so probably a few more places in Lethbridge that you might be able to go enjoy our beer soon.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh my god, look at that.
Yeah, and I just picked up a couple kegs for the country club too. So they're gonna have your beer starting. Well, I'm delivering the kegs tomorrow, so probably the weekend. The way they're going through beer. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dave. I'll ask you to stick around, and we're gonna try this whole wrapping up the tasting thing again. Attempt number 2. So. Well, we certainly got an interesting conclusion to tonight.
Sure.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We are going to try wrapping this up again. And yeah, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night and good night. All right, well.